They're on with us now. And I had planned to sort of just have them go back and forth so you could see what their chemistry is, because it's amazing and it's inspirational and it's unlike anything really I've seen on television, the way that they get along and have gotten along. But Jemele texted me seconds before this, "Hey Dan, we're not those people anymore. And I'm scared. Good luck with this. I'm scared. I don't want to do any of that. I don't know. Like, me and Michael are in different places, and so we're just different human beings." And what is that, Jemele? Is it that just explain that to me, because I would like some help sort of navigating this with you.
Yeah, wait for me to drop a grenade on you moments before you introduced us. First of all, thank you for having us on SEIS. We appreciate it. It's been a long time.
Honestly, like, hold on. Let me just go ahead and say this off top. Y'all ain't shit for this. Let me just go ahead and say that. When Mike was like 6 o'clock, I'm like, really? And then SEIS? Come on, Batard, really? SEIS?
Oh, but no. So this was Skipper's idea, though. This was Skipper's doing.
Okay, Skipper ain't shit for it then. I mean,
okay, so I put you in a bad spot by sort of being let's recreate the six as if you had to. Did I put you in a bad spot?
I wouldn't say a bad spot. It's just we got it. We get the joke. It's it's not lost on us the irony of what you're doing here. So I just want to put that out there before we got it.
Okay, so thank you for putting that out there. And there are a number of things that I want to talk to you about, but one of them is the specifics of, and we've covered some of this ground before, but the specifics of what Jemele is talking about, where she says, well, we're not those people anymore. That's not, and like, I'd like that to explain to me. I don't understand it.
Yeah, sorry.
No. I'm glad you said that, because I was like, shit, is Dan going to invite Norby to this next? Like, what would this feels like the worst version of This Is Your Life ever. Right? All right. No, but all kidding aside, so Mike and we had a discussion last night. We were on the phone, and it was funny because it was very much like what we used to do, but so much like how we are now and don't really know each other in that way anymore. We used to spend a ton of time on the phone, and the whole thought process behind His and Hers, both as a podcast and a show, and whatever it became on the 6 o'clock Sports Center, was to bring our telephone conversations to the air. And we were talking last night, and I said to him, Mike, I don't even know you anymore. And I didn't mean that as a friend. I meant like as a TV buddy. Like, it used to be, our chemistry was so good when we were on television that with just a look or I knew where he was going. He knew where I was going. But now it feels a little bit like if we were on a basketball court together, that I would cut to the basket and Mike might throw it to the corner for a corner three. You know what I'm saying? Like,
what she's really trying to say is, like, I don't know how she like it no more. That's basically
basically, I was like,
she's been through some things. She's had some experiences. Like, I don't, it's kind of different, just a little bit.
Well, fair enough. Let me talk to you then about stuff that's just going on in sports, though, Michael, because I do want to. Just before I go down that path, though, like, to me, there's a piece of it that's unfortunate, right? Because you guys were something so special as a tandem, and it was blown apart for reasons that, like, you guys didn't choose. And so what I have in front of me now is two people that are altered and probably better and stronger and have grown. But I hate that the scars are so much that it's like, you know what? I can't do this way anymore. There's too much shit here. There's too much psychological shit. We were trying to do something. We were friends. We'd talk every night. We cared about it. We did 18 hours a day. It's like, we're talking more than our husbands and wives are talking to us. We're pouring ourselves into this. It explodes in our face. We're all changed for this. I don't even want to do it that way anymore. Like, the scars of that to me are symbolically large.
Yeah, and just to your point, I'm like, when we were doing it, I wasn't married, right? And so that was one of the biggest changes, is that I was, because as much as people optically may have thought Mike and I were the same, it was like two Black people around the same age, both had a certain, vibe, both into the same things, but we were very different. Mike is a husband with 3 kids, living that life. Me, I was, granted, Mike and I were on TV when I started dating my husband. So he was there at the very beginning, and gave him the nickname that still sticks, oh boy. But, it was just a different life that I was living in. And so now it's just like, you know, I'm a respectable housewife, sort of, not a housewife, but like a respectable wife. It's like we have different experiences now. So it's not that if we were just having a conversation as friends, that would go as smoothly as it always has. But having a conversation as, okay, we used to do this shit every day, and this is how we build a rundown, I think it's different. I think Mike and I, we don't even care about sports in the same way that we used to when we did his and hers in Sports Center, right, Mike?
Yeah, no, I mean, there was some level of responsibility, you know, especially on Sports Center, but to a lesser extent on his and hers, to tackle sports. But we always did it in our own way. So, you know, and both of us are really busy. You know, obviously Jemele's got a lot going on. You know, I'm trying to build a company. I'm doing a daily show again. They, you know, you can't stay away. Can't stay. You know, I'm too short. Can't stay away. I guess they think you out. They pull you back in. That's the Godfather, right, Jemele?
Yeah.
So, you know, we finally got together and was like, hey, so what you want to talk about tomorrow? And that's when she was like, I don't know you. And I was like, I don't know you either. It reminded us of like an ex that you know, you may break up on good terms and then you get back together and like, yo, you know, we should go out sometime. I'm like, cool. And then you're sitting there like, so, you know, and it's just like, it doesn't fire the same. And I'll just speak for myself. Just having done Jemele's podcast. When did I do your podcast, Jemele?
Man, it was a few months ago. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The outpouring was incredible. It was touching. And there was a lot of people that was looking for us to kind of reprise this, you know, which is, I appreciate, but there's a part of me that's just like, damn, but will it be the same? You know, it's like, I'm trying to think of a group that split up and then got back together years later and went on a concert tour. It's like, well, wait a second, they don't sound the same. You know what I mean? The rhythm isn't the same. And we just had we were at such parallel points in our careers, not just personally, but even careers. Like we were young, hungry, just trying to be heard back then. From like 2013 to 2017, we had some shit to prove. We were trying to be heard. We were just trying to work together. Like you got to understand, Dan, 8 years ago, man, it was unheard of for two Black people to hold down the show, let alone a Black woman. That wasn't happening. You know what I mean? From optically or creatively, that wasn't happening. And so we were just trying to get a shot. We were just trying to get our voices out there, whether that was a podcast or eventually his and hers and so on. And so we're just different now. So that was the anxiety. It's not personal. We still talking to each other felt like we had just talked to each other the day before. We were on the phone for what, 2 hours? Mostly because I can't shut up. But
nothing's changed.
Yeah, that's the thing. In terms of crafting a show, we just realized, like she said, it's just where does she like the ball on the floor has changed. But it just is an interesting exercise, a thought exercise we experienced last night.
Okay, well then let's do it this way, because I know how interesting both of you are, and I certainly know that when
you're disappointing you.
No, not at all. I think, first of all, I told you guys, and I said it out loud when you started, they started that show with you guys doing ads and you were dancing, and neither of you can dance a lick, and I didn't even like the look of, let's give these guys the signature franchise, and hey, they're Black people, and nobody does anything like this, and as a first act, let's have them actually dance, when neither of them can dance. I don't even know among the two of you, I thought it was such a bad look and I get why it is you guys would do it, because this is an opportunity of a lifetime. We'll do whatever the hell we need to do because this is the biggest platform. And so I'm not here asking you to dance for me on Do the Six again, but I know how interesting you guys are. And so if I stimulate your curiosities and I just ask you about Naomi Osaka, what happened with her and how you absorbed that, Michael, as a journalist. I know you haven't stopped caring about sports there. I know the societal condition as it relates to sports. I bet you can give me 3 minutes on that. That's outstanding off the top of your head because of your history.
I do it every day with Michael Holley on Peacock TV, Brother from Another. I mean, I still do this. I just haven't done it with Jemele. So that's why I said I don't know how she likes it now. No,
although I do feel the need to stop you there, and I know Mike is going to stop you there.
I'm about to say, you talk about the dancing?
Yes. Go ahead. We got to go back to the dance.
I was going to ask you, Jemele, do you remember when we walked into the makeup room, the shit that was laid out?
Yep, I do. And believe it or not, Dan, what you saw was so much worse than when we actually got our hands on it. And so, yeah, Mike, you take it from here, because I was like, hold on.
Man, they wanted me to put on a Run DMC outfit, bro. They wanted me to put on like some gold chains, some shell toes, they wanted to go the whole nine. I'm like, bullshit. I'm like, you ain't about to have me out here, shucking and jiving. Like, that ain't happening. And so the compromise, because even though it's like, yeah, I get the optics of Black people dancing, but see, here's the thing though. And it got to come a time when when can Black people be allowed to have fun without perpetuating the stereotype? Because what you saw was actually us. Like, and we freestyled that whole bit. We freestyled, you know, because that was, I remember it like it was yesterday. Me singing a song and knowing Jemele was our relationship. Us clowning and dancing was really us. And for it to be viewed through the prism of, oh, they're the Black people go dancing. No, it was just two friends having fun. And the problem, if I may just kind of like summarize the entire situation, and I appreciate the introduction, Dan, I really do. It means more than you know, because everything we did was always viewed through the prism of two Black people versus two good people. Like, that wasn't no affirmative action shit. Like, we deserved that position. We earned that. We bust our ass to get to that point. I'll take the Pepsi challenge with anybody that's ever come through those doors based on what we can do. And so to focus on the commercial, yeah, it could have been worse to Jemele's point, but we made it ours. The worst one to me, Jemele, was the costumes. The worst one, we were doing the skit because that suggested, and the ad suggested that the show wasn't about sports. But when we actually did the show, we covered sports with the best of them. So that's all I have to say about that.
And if Dan, if you will allow me to do this, and I'm saying this, and I hope people take it in the spirit in which it is meant, because I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, because this was all new to everybody in a lot of ways. Not just because Mike and I were much different than what was your traditional Sports Center anchors, but we were in many ways experimenting in real time. So Mike, if you remember this, the original creative that was brought to us, we actually liked, but Skipper actually didn't think went far enough to showcase
the Michael Jordan Chicago Bulls.
Chicago Bulls, which we actually liked. It was a different creative that we liked, and we were like, oh, this is good. But Skipper's like, no. This does not showcase the personality. He wanted it bigger and grander and just, you know, it be about this. And which we could understand, like he wanted to showcase our personality. The problem with it is what Mike said, is that when you have a Sports Center ad that says music, movies, and more, I will never forget that tagline. Yeah. People think that it's not about sports. We could never get under that narrative. We weren't on 6 o'clock giving movie reviews. We weren't on there giving music reviews. We weren't talking about the hottest albums, though we did have a playlist on Apple, which was fire, I must say. But the thing is, it got planted in everybody's minds that we don't talk about sports, that you got these two Negroes just out here talking about all kind of loose shit that ain't got nothing to do with the product of ESPN. And that was never true. So it was well-intentioned what they wanted to be behind the marketing machine of those commercials. And to this day, I fucking hate It Takes Two. And that used to be one of my favorite songs.
Dude, oh my God.
I can't stand that song now.
Every time it comes on, I got to change the shit. I'm like, damn it.
I was like, I can't stand it.
Every single time it comes on.
So it was well-intentioned, but the fact is that there was a lot of things that we didn't think through. And I say we, I mean as a group. We rushed the show on air, and once we got behind that 8 ball, we could never get out. So anyway, on to your question about Naomi Osaka. Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
No, hold on. Now you got me in a more interesting place. We'll come back to Osaka in a second. And furthermore, I'm going to give you a chance to talk to Skipper about this because he's around here somewhere, and I want to sort of go through some of this because I do feel well-intentioned as it was. I do feel that something that ended up happening there is that you guys simply needed more support that looked like you. You guys needed more support that thought like you. You needed more support that came from the place that you came from journalistically. For the people who do not understand, when Michael says he's the youngest, I don't know if you're the youngest to ever walk through those doors with those credentials, Mike, but you were a young, hotshot journalist. There wasn't anybody like you. At 24, you were early to ESPN, and nobody got there that fast. I've got that right? About 24 years old?
That's exactly right.
And Jemele was the only black female columnist in America in sports for how many years, Jemele?
Well, 2 that I know of. I don't know what the deal was once I got to ESPN.
Okay, but how many years are we talking about? Like where you were the only one, Jemele, where in the country?
I was in 05 and 06, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so you come to ESPN and you are the maximum credentialed, and you're doing that show, with your personality. Because I remember, God Almighty, I remember I think it might be the only time that I have been jealous of something that someone else had at ESPN, because I don't function this way. When you guys did that Anchorman spoof in the parking lot,
Yeah,
I was
did.
like, no, but I was like, let them play with that. Let them play with that for the rest of the time. That show will take off from there if they could treat this as creatives with that playground. Now, obviously, that television takes a lot of time to make, but I felt like you guys would get so good at it so fast that if you were left alone, you could have been making television like that all the time.
I don't know that we would end up being Saturday Night Live. And honestly, I think that might be the issue. I think there were a lot of people internally on the highest levels, and I don't want to be specific, only because I don't know. I can't speak to what each person knew. But I don't know that everybody, and God, I hope your audience actually gives two shits about this. But I don't know that everybody was aware of the depths of our conversations. They saw Anchorman, they saw Coming to America, they saw Boys in the Hood, they saw Empire,
Step Brothers.
They saw the skits, and they thought we were cute. But they didn't, I don't know that they were really paying attention at noon on ESPN2 to the types of conversations we were having at a time that, even though, okay, so the landscape has changed now. Like, everybody's having the conversation around the intersection of sports and culture and society and politics. Like, that's just everywhere now. When we were doing it on His and Hers, there was a different dude in the White House, okay? So it was just a different climate all the way around for the most part. And then so when they said to us, be you on SportsCenter, we were like, y'all sure? I don't think they knew we were asking them. And so then when we went to SportsCenter and we brought the whole package, so not only did we open SportsCenter with A Different World, which is the greatest open of any show at ESPN history.
All time. Cheers,
all time. Nobody's ever, I'm proud of that. Oh, and that was the high water mark. It was all downhill from there. That's when it was like, oh no, we can't have this shit. That's when it was like, oh hell no, they're going too far with this. But not only did we do that, but we were having conversations that obviously made a lot of people uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, Dan, I think this happened in LA. I know it happened in general, but the discussions we had on Trayvon Martin, because it went back that far. I mean, we had like a 20-minute discussion on police brutality. It was interesting because one day I was on YouTube and wound up going down a rabbit hole, and I somehow wound up on some of the conversations that I didn't realize people appreciated as much as they did. So a lot of the things that we talked about were on YouTube, but between Philando Castile, Colin Kaepernick, like we did things on TV you were not allowed to do. I mean, a 20-minute discussion on police brutality, 20 minutes. And in TV time, Dan, that shit is like 2 hours, okay? And they tried to cut Mike off, and Mike was like, no, we ain't going to break. And we just kept going. We used our show, His and Hers, as an open canvas. And that was part of our thought process. Our mentality going in it was a phrase that Mike coined that became basically a theme for the show. They will learn to like it. And we didn't care if they liked it or if they didn't. And so it was that sense of fearlessness and bravado that we took into the six. And I think this is why it was so easy for both of us to walk away from it, because we never were going to compromise who we were to be on TV. It just ain't in our blood. We just not built that way. And so a lot of people, God bless them, being on SportsCenter, being at ESPN is a destination job for probably 90% of the people in our profession. But like Django, we just that 1 in 10,000. It's like it was easy to walk away from, just because it was not going to be, we were not going to be some sanitized version of what they wanted us to be. Now, all that being said, I think because of that, going through that experience and where we are now in life, that's why we're so different. I mean, do I think that Mike and I tomorrow could turn out a hell of a show? Hell yeah, we could, because it's just in our blood to do it. But there is a part of both of us that treats His and Hers like the sequel that you don't do, like Eddie Murphy should have done with Coming to America. And I know you're gonna fight me on this, Mike, but anyway.
I'm not gonna fight you on it.
Coming to America, the sequel wasn't good. Sorry, it just wasn't.
But I mean, it wasn't good. But what was it intended to be? I don't think it was intended to be like those dudes was like, yo, man, let's just get together and have some fun. These was old dudes at the club. Like I don't think they were under any illusions that they were actually trying to follow up Coming to America. I think they knew it was impossible.
Oh, and I wasn't holding it to the standard that it had to be coming.
Bad.
I think objectively that the window at the time where they needed to do another sequel had already passed. There were definitely bright moments. I will never not love Eddie Murphy on screen. Never not love him in Arsenio. Wesley Snipes was a true treasure, but the story itself kind of. It just
it left some stuff to be.
Pearl wasn't quite.
Yeah,
it wasn't great.
I feel you on that, but by the end of it, I was like, that was cute. That was fun, and it was. I laughed a few times. I smiled more than I laughed.
Movies, music more. This is the SEIS.
I know.
This what got us in trouble right
here. This is what happened. Exactly.
Sports.
So give us, though, what you've got on Osaka, Michael, because I'd like to hear what you think of everything. As a journalist, as someone whose curiosities are always stimulated, at this time in America, a Black Asian woman who's 23 years old in that sport, right? Coming after Venus and Serena brought Compton to the country club. And after, we move away from the gender and sexuality conversations that Billie Jean King and Navratilova made us have in that sport before anybody was ready in sports or in America about gender and sexuality, you find yourself in a place where now Naomi Osaka is withdrawing from the French Open. She's saying this is all a source of anxiety to her, and she doesn't want to do it that way. And all four majors, the entire corporation falls on her neck and tells her to stay within the literal white lines. Your thoughts on that entire story?
I got a lot, so I'll try to keep it as focused as I can. I think, for one, we're talking about, first one through or being ahead of your time or this, that, and the other. Like, I personally, I've never been, I think I'm talking to two people who feel the same way. I've never felt a sense of entitlement as a reporter. Like, I've never felt that anybody owed me the time to sit down at any point and talk to me. And frankly, I ain't never been one to chase anybody in life. And so if you don't want to talk, I don't want to talk to somebody who doesn't want to talk, because usually you ain't saying shit. I'll find somebody else who does want to talk. So I've always had a pretty relaxed attitude about so-called media obligations. The other part of it is protest takes on many forms. And whether it's Marshawn Lynch before her, or whether it's Naomi Osaka, and we talked about dancing. Somebody telling the system, somebody telling the establishment, I'm not dancing, because it's the intersection of a lot of things. It's gender, it's race, it's politics, it's power, it's money, it's mental health. And somebody just saying, I'm not dancing, I'm not accommodating you, I'm not in a good place to do this. And rather than sit up here and try to figure it out all nice and neat with you, I'm just gonna go home and say, the leverage that I have is that I don't need to do this. You need me more than I need you in this moment. Then I think that's extremely powerful. And I like that it was messy. I've heard some people say that, they could have done things differently on both sides. It needed to be messy to expose just how far we collectively have to go around a conversation of mental health, because there are varying degrees of physical ailments, whether it's everything from a runny nose to a terminal illness. And but when it comes to mental health, people think you gotta be like, not to trivialize it, of course, but suicidal, or you gotta have like a nervous breakdown to have a mental health issue. And I love that it's in this weird spot of like, well, people have done this for years. People have talked to media for years. It comes with the job, it comes with the territory. I'm too much is given, much is required. Maybe this shit shouldn't be required of them. And I love that we're having that conversation.
Dan, the way I fall on it is this. I'm going to provide a little bit of a defensive journalist, because I realize a great many people don't realize how we do our jobs. And even the way I do my job now is not the way that I did it 10 or 15 years ago when I was covering a beat, when I did rely on these kind of press conferences for my access. I don't think many journalists take it really all that personally when you don't talk to them. I mean, some of them do, but I think the majority of them honestly don't. Most of us don't love press conferences. We would prefer to talk to you one-on-one. You all were seasoned reporters before you became these huge media personalities. I'm going to guess, Dan, when you were at the Miami Herald, how much did you rely on a press conference?
I hated them. I wanted something that I could have to myself, even if it was from someone lesser, that I can just explore honestly, than sit in these canned settings that aren't real and you're not going to get. You just can't do it. I mean, you might if someone's super engaged, but it's hard in those settings to get what you need to write, to do the best kind of storytelling.
Correct. The whole point is that you, as a reporter, columnist, whatever, you want to get something that's unique, that's specialized to your story. And I think people have it twisted, like journalists are calling the shot and we're the ones clamoring for these press conferences. The reason they're done is because logistically, it's what they have come up with. It's a solution. It's a way that Naomi Osaka or any star does not have to go around and do 50 individual interviews with 50 different outlets. She can be in one place at one time. They can streamline the information. It's also a method of control because they feel like they can prepare an athlete for a press conference more so than a one-on-one. In a one-on-one, they might say all types of wild shit they don't want them to say. Yeah. In a press conference, they feel like this is a controlled environment.
Hey, so, that's enough. No more questions. Thank you.
No more questions. Correct. Yeah. So for people to get this idea that this is something that journalists just want, no. However, what I do think about, and I don't think this necessarily applies to the tennis media because that's largely covered by the foreign press. The foreign press is a little more aggressive than sometimes that we can be about tennis. All right. We can be aggressive, but in different forms. Right. And tennis is not covered in America the way it is covered overseas, where Naomi mostly has to deal with this. They will ask some rude ass questions, things that a lot of us probably wouldn't ask. But the whole point is that a tennis star is not just available the way LeBron James is available. LeBron James is more available than Naomi Osaka. As crazy as that may seem to most people, he probably talks, at least when he was in the playoffs. That's not a shot. It's a fact. He probably talks.
I can't say that.
Exactly.
No, I'm saying that was a shot.
It was not a shot, but I just wanted people to know that, like,
nobody knew he was eliminated last night.
I mean, I'm just saying he was eliminated. I take no glory in this. Believe me, I do not. It was not shade at all. I'm just stating a fact. LeBron is not in the playoffs, but when he was and playing in the regular season, he probably talks at least multiple times a week, right? Tennis stars are not available generally if it's not a tournament. So then you have the combination of a tabloid, a blog, all these different types of media in one press conference asking Naomi Osaka 70 different things. It's like one person might want to just ask about tennis. They might want to just ask about why her forehand is all that. They might want to just ask about unseating Serena Williams. And then you can get a bogey from over here that's like, who you dating? What's up with you and old boy? Like that is, so all of this is in one press conference because it's by design. So I get it that a lot of people have taken this opportunity to look at our profession and say, y'all suck, y'all ain't shit, look what y'all put her through. It ain't all us, okay? This is an entire system that has been created for a reason. And as I've told people when I wrote the piece for The Atlantic, you know, there's usually a wall behind the players when they give a press conference, a banner. Banner has
all sponsors.
They have sold this space. So like, I get it. We low hanging fruit. It's easy to punch a journalist in the face and say y'all ain't shit, but I'm telling you,
it's the whole economy.
Like most systems, it's all I'm saying. I hear everything you're saying, Jemele. That's great context. But like most systems, especially in this so-called moment that we're in, it can be reevaluated. So you're right. It is by design, but is it designed properly? Can it be adjusted?
No, it can definitely be adjusted.
Can it be reformatted? Yep. Can there be exceptions? Is it mandatory? You know, I mean, I get that. And not only are the sponsors making money, she has made a lot of money off the court from media availability. So there's value to it. But I just don't think people have to be so absolute. But you're right. I think it's a matter of us noticing some of the complainers more than the rest of them who are just like, it's cool. You know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think any of us are going to cry about it. I mean, of course, I do think about smaller outlets who, you know, when you're a young journalist in particular, like these press conferences are like lifelines where you begin to build those relationships so that you don't need the press conferences. It's something that people go through. But overall, what I would say to further Mike's point about a form of resistance, I think what I did love about it is they fucked around and found out. Is that I think when they sent that letter, when the French Open officials sent that statement, that all these other heads of the major tournaments decided to co-sign, I think they really thought that they were going to force her into submission. And they were thinking, we cannot have this outlier, because if we have this outlier, then all the other players are going to decide, well, we don't need to do it. And
have the inmates going to prison.
Exactly. Yes. And then they were probably thinking that everybody was going to claim mental health as a reason to avoid these media responsibilities. And I love the fact that she decided, like, oh, guess what? I wasn't bluffing, and I'd rather not play than do what you want me to do. And it's just something, it's a dynamic. And Dan, you've written about this for a long time, about this power struggle between athletes and the establishment. So we've all talked about it in different ways. Today is different. Yo, these Gen Zers, they're not fucking around, right? Like, there's a lot of shit that we took when, as you know, Gen Xers and even the generations before us, that we were like on that go along to get along. They don't give a fuck. And they just are like, guess what? You gonna find out, and it is what it is. And so I applaud that level of wanting to disrupt. I'm here for disruption. And so I'm glad that she decided to let them know in a major way that they were not going to control her. For her to decide that I'd rather not be at the French Open, that is major, considering what her career resume looks like.
Michael, this shit is fascinating to me, right? After, given what we've seen from the last 10 years of the specifics, America changing, the leadership of the country changing, the idea that a platform now is just white resentment is part of a platform, and you get this situation where athletes are having things thrown at them at NBA games. Ratings are going down. That's the political organization, the one that is blackest, and the one with the loudest black voices is the political organization punished by America for being black and loud and proud, and we're going to throw bottles at you, and we're going to spit on you, and all of the stuff happening with empowerment where these guys are realizing, wait, we can run this league, but then if we do run this league and make these super teams, everybody's going to get pissed off about that. Like everybody, our customers, everybody is going to get pissed off. And so what you have is an uprising from athletes, Michael, like she's talking about Naomi Osaka, 23 years old. Where we're like, they're all realizing, all of them, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, all of them are, wait a minute, why was I just taking it? I've got legitimate power. LeBron can do whatever the hell he wants. Like, why don't I have that power if I'm Aaron Rodgers, if I'm Tom Brady? And they're all realizing it. We don't need the media. We don't need ESPN. We don't need anything. I'm my own economy.
I think a lot of it has to do with, and you know, kind of tying into what all three of us are doing at various levels post ESPN. A lot of it is that they're their own storytellers now too. You know, that level of control that either the leagues or the media once had about how they're perceived, about their brands. These guys, that's one way that you can seize control of your narrative, is by, in many cases, developing your own content or just having a direct pipeline to your fans. But no, I mean, it's 100%, there's 100% racial undertones, no question about it. And not just in the NBA though. I mean, look, shit is thrown at baseball players, you know, like racial epithets are hurled at baseball players, NFL players. I mean, it's pervasive across all sports. And people say, oh, why you got to make everything about race? You know, maybe it's just a couple of idiots, as if you have to be an idiot in order to be racist. You know what I mean? Like, you could just be racist without being an idiot. And I would just add, like, show me the black person who's gotten out of pocket at a game. One thing is great. We know better than do that shit. We know we probably get fucking drugged out of a stadium. Like, we don't throw shit at people. We don't act like that. We know better. It's like, it's only white people who feel entitled enough, not in general, but the ones who do it, ones who get ushered out by security are 100% white people. And they
or you can say they're not black. We can say that. Like,
not black. Yeah, sorry.
They're not black.
Thank you. Appreciate it. You know,
just in case.
Yeah, just in case. You know, it's the NBA, it's the Black Lives Matter on the court. There's a lot of lingering resentment about these rich athletes, but also too, and I said this about the Trae Young situation. Some of it is like, we laugh and we think that shit's cute, and it's all fun and games when it's fuck you Trae Young, fuck you Trae Young. Somebody gonna take that shit literally. Somebody gonna take it too far. So it's like, we can't sit up here and egg on these fans and these chants and these insults and all this heckling that we've always allowed, and that to me shouldn't even be part of the price of admission. A lot of people give those people passes, like, oh, if you want to heckle us, well, wait a second, why you got to do that? Why you got to do that? If you want to boo, okay, booing is fine. Showing support for your team is fine. But people talking shit, that's not even necessary. But eventually that stuff escalates. And that's my frustration, is that a lot of it is inevitable. when you look, like somebody out of those 15 or 20 or 50,000, somebody going to decide to throw something. I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often, quite frankly. And my solution to it is not like letting players throw hands with them, because we know how that would go. It's not even banning them. I say we have a goon squad in the stands of concerned citizens. If the people of Boston do not,
you want some Avengers up in the stands?
I'm so serious. I'll put together a special team. The people you don't like people thinking that your fans are racist. The next time you hear something, handle that shit yourself in the stand.
Okay, but I will say this, Mike, to give the fans a slight reprieve, is one thing I did notice is that all the people who did some shit, other fans were telling on them. So I think there's a different awareness.
I'm not just saying tell on them.
You're just saying like it should be some
handle
like
fan.
Like a street justice among fans. Police your own neighborhood. Get these other fans.
Let the animals fight themselves out.
I actually credited you the other day when I was on.
No way.
I did. I credit you often, Mike. Because somebody had asked me about the same issue, and I brought up something you brought up to me like a long time ago, talking about fantasy football and about how you think that how you thought, I don't know if you still think this way, again, part of me relearning you, okay, is that fantasy football has given people they already had a sense of entitlement, but even now fantasy football gives them an even higher sense of entitlement and ownership of the players, of thinking that like, oh, this dude is out here performing for me, and that I deserve some entitlement to his space, his life, his humanity, like all of that. And so you were the first one that I remember to ever kind of bring that up. And so I gave you a lot of credit for coming up with that.
Well, it's also practice too. I mean, and we've all referenced it or mentioned it. It's just a day and age where people can say what they want behind the keyboard, and that you don't turn that off all of a sudden, I don't think. You know what I mean? That becomes part of your personality. I think as journalists, when it comes to these athletes, we've always conducted ourselves. I never talked to you about this specifically, Dan, but I know I've talked to Jemele this way. Like we always, when we were on television or radio, whatever the case may be, we were just brought up this way. But as professionals, we're not going to talk about somebody in a way that we wouldn't say it to their face. Amen. Like that's just like that's the street code. Like I'm not going to talk shit and then like I got to see that person. So, but back in the day, and you guys were both columnists. I was never technically a columnist. I was more of a beat writer. But you guys didn't write columns from the comfort of your home and then not show up at the games or in the locker room. You were in the locker room and you were accountable for what you wrote. So if somebody that's old school. If somebody had a bone to pick with you, you were there. You showed up like a man, or as the case may be, like a woman, right? I think there's just too many people who have grown comfortable, especially in isolation, with saying whatever they want from a distance, whether that distance is miles away through fiber optics and Wi-Fi, or that distance is 50, 60, 70 feet away. They feel like they can just shout whatever they want.
I'm glad you said that though, Mike, because a lot of people don't realize that used to be a real ethos of our profession. That was when I became a columnist. I was 28 years old. And that was even before I became a columnist and just writing stories and covering the team. That was one of the first lessons that you learn. You write some shit, you show up the next day, you give them an opportunity to respond, or maybe they won't respond. And I still remember, and this used to be my rule on TV, like I'm never gonna say some shit about you on TV I would not say to your face. And I remember your boy, Johnny Manziel.
I was so high on Johnny Manziel, God.
Man, dude, you were like, yo, Johnny Manziel about to change the game. Because you used to call him your son. Talk about a freezing.
Yo, why you gotta bring up old shit? Like
yo, dog, you used to be like, Johnny Manziel got the other bunk bed next to Mason. I was like, like really?
I get sometimes, I really do.
But it's
Michael,
okay.
Michael, you had it right. It's unfair. It's unfair. Johnny betrayed you. You called the way the game was going to change.
Right.
But like all those quarterbacks came, it's just Manziel was in the club. Like you had the idea, wait, this entire sport can change if Manziel is what I think he is, which is Kyler Murray and all these guys who are now running around all over the place.
So yes. So you were just ahead of your time. We'll put it that way. Wrong person. So when we were doing his or hers, I used to be like, man, this shit don't wear out, dog. I was like, I'm telling you, it's gonna wear out. It's kind of lame, but whatever. And literally, when I ran into him at a party after the ESPYs, it was when Drake hosted, right? So Drake threw this huge party after the ESPYs, because usually the hosts would throw a party, but Drake threw the secret party where you had to go to a parking garage, get in a van, and then you get to go to the house or whatever.
That doesn't sound familiar to me, but okay.
All right. I mean, back in those days, Mike, like, I was the queen of like busting into shit I was supposed to be in.
You also had the party beat. Not to distract from your point, but you had the coldest job of all time. They used to pay you to go to the party,
cover parties,
Super Bowl, and write about.
But this was not that case. I was there at the ESPYs because I'd never done the ESPYs. I did that with the Super Bowl. Like for years, I created a beat where I covered the parties or whatever, and I wrote pretty much 90% of the material completely drunk, but that's beside the point, Dan. We don't want to talk about that.
Amin wants that job. Where's Amin? Is Amin around here somewhere?
Yeah, is he alive? Because somebody told me he like passed out or something.
I saw him running down the street drinking rum. He's totally out of control.
Yeah, good job, Dan. Anyway, so at the party, we go to this party. I love sneaking into parties because I think that's the only best way to actually get in a party. I think the party means more when you sneak into it. So, to let you know how long ago it was, literally we post up at the bar that is in Drake's rented house in Hollywood, and me, some of my friends, all the names will remain innocent. I don't want to bust them out of who was there with me. And like first it was Juvenile, then it was Too Short, and then came Johnny Manziel and Colin Kaepernick. All right, of all people. And I told Johnny to his face because I think he said something like, "Oh, you criticize me a lot." I was like, "Yeah, I do." I was like, "Because I think this is dumb." I was like, I get it and I understand it, but at the same time, you just asking for somebody to just blast your ass because you keep doing this, man. Like that shit is gonna wear out. Like I understand it. So it just gets back to my point is that there was never anything I said on television that I would not have said to an athlete in their face at whatever moment. And I remember at the time with Colin, this is before the protest or whatever, and he always kind of had a very difficult relationship with the media in San Francisco, and I think a lot of it was egged on by Jim Harbaugh because he has this us against them kind of mentality that he puts into the team. And he's like, no, you know how football coaches are. Like, they're just like, it's us, it's them. They trying to destroy us. I mean, they make it seem like the media is like War of the Worlds or some shit. It's like, it's not that deep. Somebody's looking for a quote, but okay, do what you got to do. So, I mean, I even told him then, I was like, realize that the media always has the last word. We got the microphone literally all the time. And so you have to just be careful about what how you're presenting yourself to them. So anyway, I say all that to say, to make a long story even longer, other than just name dropping Drake and Johnny Manziel and Colin Kaepernick, is to say that was the kind of one of those, mantras that you had about the profession, is that you showed up when you wrote something critical, let them cuss you out if they have to. And to me, just don't say shit on TV you wouldn't say to somebody's face. You wouldn't throw hands with them, so why you acting like on TV that you would? Like, you wouldn't. So you have to have a level of professional respect with the people you cover, even though you're not in bed with them. But we got to be about something more than just saying wild shit on TV and people thinking like that's the way you do this job.
Guillermo, put it on the poll, please, at LeBatard Show. Should there be a goon squad of concerned citizens patrolling as security as NBA games? I mean, how much have you had to drink here? What state are you in? I'm very worried about you. What's going on with you?
I'm in Florida, Dan.
Okay, you can leave
that's
now.
A start.
All right, thank you. You can leave now. Do you like?
No, look, here's the thing. I sat in that closet for 45 minutes waiting to do a bit that never ended up happening. I had to fake cry. You guys know how hard it is to fake cry for 45 minutes? By the end of it, I was real crying. And all the while, I wanted just one opportunity to look into that camera with a single tear trickling down my cheek, Dan LeBatard, to let people know that Cinephobe is the podcast where we watch movies that are poorly rated on Rotten Tomatoes.
Get out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here.
Accurately poorly rated.
Go to the penalty box. Go to the penalty box. This is what happened. Forgive me, Jemele and Michael.
You ascertain a lot.
Forgive me.
Too much ascertaining.
You ascertain.
Get him out of here, okay? He was sitting in the penalty box, and Billy just told me we forgot that he was in there. So he was crying for 45 minutes, and he thought he was on camera the entire time. Please leave and go sit there now. We'll see if we can get this right. Jemele, Michael, we're going to have John Skipper in here in a second. The audience needs to know this. Michael Smith, Brother from Another, airs 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern on Peacock with Michael Holley. And Jemele Hill, she's a contributing writer for The Atlantic, and she is also the host of Jemele Hill is Unbothered on Spotify. Before we get John Skipper in here, though, give me a few minutes here on LeBron. I know we were at all times having to contractually obligated to talk about him, but he has dominated the last 15 years in this space and has become, you know, the closest thing to Ali that there can be in our time in terms of all of it, right? Representing his constituency the way Michael Jordan never did. Give me what you've got on where LeBron is legacy-wise as a person who instigates change.
Well, at least for me, you know, nothing that happened in this series changes where LeBron is. And that's always been the fascinating thing, I think, about his career, just where we are in sports media, period, or just as a sports culture, is we act like people's legacies just change with series, with moments. It's like, nah, I mean, if he was great last week and over accomplishing for a 36-year-old, why would that not be the case this week? You know, I think his legacy is just so set that I think the talk of the legacy as the outside looking in and not being in the machine of having to talk about him, it actually is pretty comical. Like looking at it where people are just like, oh, well, Michael Jordan never. I was like, Michael Jordan got his ass busted by the Pistons a few years and people thought that he was never going to win. And I know that was younger in his career, but for people to treat this first round exit like it's some kind of indictment on who he is, I was like, the man has made 50-11 finals. Like, why are we doing this? You know? And so, you know, I just look at everything that I've treated sports a lot differently and a lot less results oriented in the last year or so in the pandemic. We put entirely too much stock into what these results are just from the standpoint of not even appreciating the fact how weird it is for teams to be sent to a bubble in Orlando and then be asked to perform, or having a 2-month off season and then be asked to do a full NBA season to help along the league and try to get back on the sports calendar. I mean, the fact that in college basketball, you saw what Michigan State, Duke, North Carolina, you saw literally the heavyweights of heavyweights. None of them made the tournament. It's like, this shit is not easy. We're in a pandemic. You know, I hate to, you know, I don't want to be the person to say like sports are not important. Of course they're important, but like we got to really put this up against some perspective here. And so that it feels really ridiculous to be talking about somebody's legacy as a basketball player in his total that was, one, already established, and two, not taking into account the climate and what's happening in our country right now, because you can't really divorce them from one another.
I'll just real quickly take the off the court aspect. And I think, when all is said and done and there's nothing left to say or do, I think he's going to stand alone in terms of influence and impact. And the reason I think that's with all due respect to his predecessors on whose shoulders he obviously stands. But when you think about, you know, in no particular order, okay, so obviously he's already one of the, you know, 2, maybe 3 greatest basketball players of all time. To Jamele's point, there's nothing that's going to change that. He has changed how the game is managed, not just how the game is played. A guy like Steph Curry changed how the game is played. Will Chamberlain changed how the game is played. LeBron changed how the game is managed. I mean, his agent has got an article in the New Yorker. I mean, they're power brokers, and he's a power broker, and like no player has been internally. Jemele used that word disruption earlier. Who's disrupted the status quo, the system? This modern day era of player empowerment is credited to LeBron James. So that's internally. Externally, politically, philanthropically, socially, economically, in terms of media, business, culture. I just don't know anybody who moves the culture forward and who drives conversations across the board. Like okay. Sunday night, was it Sunday or Monday? No, Sunday was Russell Westbrook's. Monday night, he had a CNN film with him and Maverick Carter on the Tulsa race riot, for crying out loud. I mean, come on. I mean, Jemele.
And not to mention the shop. He had the shop with Jay-Z.
Well,
right?
and you've been a part of his projects. I mean, for crying out loud,
Yes,
the guy has
I
touched
have.
everything. And so I think legacy-wise, it's second to none, and I just don't know that it's comparable to anybody else's, just because of how excellent he's been in so many different arenas. He is the man in the arenas, plural.
Okay, we have something at 7:00. Pat Riley is going to show up here, so we don't have the
Oh, he
time.
can wait.
We don't have the time here that I'd want to have you guys talk to John Skipper, the CEO of Meadowlark Media, and the guy who had so much to do with what SportsCenter 6 was trying to be. So anything you guys got for him, here he is, right here, because you took a pot shot, Jemele, before he got in here, and so now and you felt real brave about it when he wasn't in here, and you said,
Exactly.
Here, so here he is, right here. Here he is.
I didn't hear the pot shot, so I don't see any reason to ever know about it. I don't think it helps at all.
You know what, John? Don't let Dan gaslight you. I will say this: the one we were talking about the infamous commercial, music, movies, and more.
Oh,
and
yeah, I remember.
Tell me if I'm lying, okay?
No, you're not lying.
I'm not lying here, but originally the creative that involved like a Michael Jordan Bulls-esque introduction, you didn't like it, all right? And you were like, it needs to be amped up, it needs to be more high, it needs to be whatever. So that's how we wound up in costumes. And that's all I said.
Okay, well, I don't mind that. Look, what I want to say is one, hello. I mean, we did this company because we wanted to work and be with people we loved and liked and enjoyed being with. And the comments that both you guys just had on LeBron remind us of what you guys can do. And I'm glad you got some reps in today together, because when you were working together every day, it was magic. It was great chemistry, and you complimented each other and you made each other better. And that's what we wanted. And I don't want to rehash. SEIS was just a joke. We bring you on at 6:00. We remind ourselves of something.
We got it. It was good. It was good.
And we move on from there. But look, what's important here is I'm sitting with Dan Batard, writer, reporter for the Miami Herald. Michael, you came from the Boston Globe. Jemele from the Orlando Sentinel. You were storytellers, and you were looked different than most of the other people who got to tell stories. And it was important that you got on the air so that Dan Batard can ask you about LeBron James, and you have a better insight into it than other people did because of how you grew up and what you understand. So this has been fun for me to see you guys and to see you again. And I'm glad we had a chance to have a little reunion. And I'm just here to say hello and tell you how much fun it was to work with you and how proud I was of what you've done since then. And one of the great things about starting this company with Dan is we get to be reacquainted with the people we like and love to work with. I know, Jemele, you're going to help us do some things. Michael, my friend, you're always welcome. And I hope you have some ideas you want to come in and talk to Dan about, because that's what we want to do here. And people don't understand how important it was. When we started the magazine, we said we want to have some new voices. I asked for what Hispanic columnists are there in the country, and this was the whole list. I asked what black female journalists were daily sports writers, and Jemele Hill was the whole list. It's not the whole list anymore. It's not what it needs to be, but you guys were pioneers. We're here to remind ourselves of that. Thank you for showing up and being with us today, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you. Thank you, Dan, for having me.
All right, buddy.
Like, I didn't know. I wasn't trying to get emotional on this.
I'm not trying to make
I was
anybody.
like, Skipper, you smooth motherfucker, you man.
I'm not trying to make anybody cry.
No, I mean,
and look, I'm just glad you guys were here. And the fact that it was 6:00 was fun for me for about 2 minutes, and then we can move on. And I'm going to try to get us on schedule here pretty soon.
I'll just say real. All I'll say is real quick is, 'cause I haven't talked to you in a while, John.
It's good to see you.
Thank you for everything. Thank you for that commentary. I know we didn't get a proper separation or everything. We all know how it ended, but it's just really good to see you. And if anybody ever wondered why so many people, present company included, enjoyed working with and for you so much, they just heard it right there. That's quintessential John Skipper. So thank you for that.
Well,
Can I say something? Can I say something real shallow? John Skipper actually gave me my first $1 million check. It was him.
Well, you earned it.
I'm not saying I didn't, but the whole point is like
There's a lot of ways to process that.
Yeah.
I mean, you realize that was like a flex just now, right?
Yeah,
it
no,
was,
that's good.
but no, it's important though because part of this is
$3 check.
no, he did. He gave me my first one, but this is why I said that is like part of the thing that we have been talking about in terms of this country is like, you know, about Black people getting paid what they worth.
Uh-huh.
And the one thing that you did, John, that was not being done wholesale at ESPN, you tried to usher in a different era. Mike and I made the same amount of money. And that did not happen on every show. Okay. And even when I first came into doing Numbers Never Lie with you, that was not the case. We were making a different amount of money. And you made it a goal of yours to be like, you know, there's going to be pay equity at ESPN. And so it was because of you. That's why I said that. I didn't say that to flex, although now y'all know. Yeah, but I mean, I'll take the flex. Don't get me wrong. I ain't apologizing for shit. I cashed them 7 figures, like whatever. But the whole point is like, that's an important step as we talk about equity and equality and all those things, is like that was a hallmark of your time at ESPN, is that you wanted to make sure that men and women, and in particular, because the pay scales are different, Black men and women are making the same amount of money. So for that, I think that's a part of your legacy that's never talked about. You deserve a lot of credit for, because pay equity is a serious problem in this country, and you did not want that to be the case at ESPN.
Just to echo that real quick, my wife says hello, John. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say. My wife says hi.
Well, tell her I said hello. And Jemele, I don't think that was shallow at all. That's quite important. And I also remember when we insisted that the athletes at the X Game, the men and women, would get paid the same thing. That matters.
Exactly.
That's not shallow at all. And again, you earned it. Mike, if I had to do all over again, I think I would call it the Her and His Show.
No, but
Yes, they blew it. Yes, that is insulting.
No, we should have switched every day. One day it should have been his and hers.
Yes.
And the other day could have been her and his.
Oh, but by the way, that's something else that people.
That's just funny, Michael. I wasn't
know.
trying to give you any trouble.
Michael,
But
it's not. Michael, it's
it
not.
was Skipper's idea to change the name of the show. By the way,
It was, and
It
I
was his
insisted
idea.
on it.
In the
So-
back room that up front. Yep.
Yeah.
I remember.
No, it was a pleasure. It's a pleasure to see you guys. And by the way, we don't know how it ended because it ain't over yet, right?
Oh.
We're still
there you
doing.
go.
We're
Oh,
still,
dear
we
God.
still got things
Look at
going
that. Look at that.
All right.
All right.
I don't know how it ends.
Right.
Guys,
And I'm closer to the end than anybody else is. So.
we love you guys. Thank you for making
Bye-bye.
the time.
Thank you.
Even though you were scared and you didn't, I don't even understand what just happened, because I'm telling you, I want to talk to you guys more often and together, because even if it doesn't, it's just, it rekindles something special. You guys have a unique voice, and when you use it together, it's even stronger than it is apart. But thank you for being on with us, guys. All right.
All right, Dan. I'm about to go make some dirty rice.
Yeah, her life is so good. Her life is so good.
Enjoy your celebration, man. Y'all deserve it. Have a good time.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Michael.
Good to see you, John.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Jemele. Again, Jemele Hill, contributing writer for The Atlantic, host of Jemele Hill is Unbothered on Spotify. Michael Smith, Brother from Another, airs 3 to 5 Eastern on Peacock.